everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. I remembered what show we were doing this time. Today we are talking about Season 7, Episode 2, Shadows and Symbols. Lots to talk about. This was an action-packed episode. We're not going to be action-packed, but like Benny Russell, we will have too many words, and people will wish that we had painted them over. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I wish people knew how many runs around the block we did just for that stupid opening. It was quite a few laps. I would say, Keith, I'm excited to chat with you because, as patrons of the channel will know because we watch the show together most weeks, this got a legit jaw drop from me. What's nice about, my wife often says about me, is that I'm a very demonstrative audience member.
You are an expressive face, yeah.
I laugh loud and uniquely. My face belies my feelings, which is difficult for me because when I do not care for something, as I think Keith knows, it's
Indeed.
difficult for me to mask that, and I have to often be reminded to be polite.
100% true.
It is
100%.
involuntary. So this episode elicited some of those reactions from me, and I'm excited to speak through them with y'all. And this was one, I would say, one of the more excited. I was very excited after last week. I hated waiting for this week, which is something unique to the pod. I, much like you back in 1998, had to wait a whole week.
That's true. That's true. Because of the way we are structuring this show, Mike has to watch this in a very 1990s style. I mean, he doesn't have off seasons and he doesn't have reruns, but it is not contemporary television is not watched once a week.
I also realized, in kind of thinking about my rating today, that I'm suffering a bit from final season-itis, I think. And this happened in our last podcast as well. Because I know it's the final season, I sort of have a wistful rose-tinted glass applied, I believe, right? Like, I love just spending time with my friends, and I know that this is the last time I get to kind of see them. It's sort of like the month of senior year. You're kind of done school, but you just want to chill with your friends, and all your emotions are heightened. So that's
all right. So this is interesting. So do you think this is causing you to be harder on the episodes? Because, like, guys, we only have so much time. You have to nail it every single time. Or are you easier on the episodes because you're like, final ride, let's do this?
So we're only 2 episodes in, and I feel like these have been pretty good episodes, so it's hard to really judge until we get to sort of what you would consider a stinker, maybe, or what the canon considers a stinker or a clunker. So thus far, I think probably I'm being a little lighter on them because there are some significant criticisms I have about this episode, but it kind of doesn't ruin the fun for me, so we'll chat all about it.
Okay, well, I am excited to get into it, but we can't do that until we hear from the patrons about last week's episode, Image in the Sand. That's not the right button.
Nope. That's why it didn't make a sound, Keith.
Yeah, I was expecting the noise. Where's the noise?
Could it be this one?
There it is. Patron comments from last week. If you would like me to read a portion of your comment, let me be very clear. A portion of your comment, if you, there are some, and I really mean this sincerely. Go read the comments if you're interested in this discussion, because there is fascinating treatises being written every week that I think are worthy of being read both with your eyeballs and with my mouth balls here on the show. But there's just there's not time for it, but it's really good stuff.
Keith, can I be your knight in shining armor for just a moment?
Please, yeah.
It's not that Keith doesn't want to read your comments in their entirety. It's that Keith is physically unable
100%.
to read your comments in their entirety.
I can't do that and then be coherent at the end of it. I'm working on a show that I'm going to be announcing probably next week, a solo show that I'll be performing in New York this November, and it's just me talking. So it's a genuinely a solo show, and I realized that I have a clock that I speaking about myself, and Lord knows a narcissist can just power up and do pretty much anything. I definitely have a moment where I'm like, I can't say words coherently anymore because I don't even remember what they're saying. So,
Keith, I don't want to belie your show. I don't want to belie the take from you the power of announcing it yourself. But I do want to say, a show with a similar, I don't want to say concept, a similar central theme.
Okay.
Is airing right now on just finished its run on HBO
everyone's
Max.
talking about it. Yep.
You have to watch The Rehearsal Season 2. If you had not seen Season 1, that's okay. If you don't know Nathan Fielder as a comic or as a performer or as a sort of creative mind, that's also okay. Just know he is a hyper-focused, creative genius, in my opinion. And what he does in this latest season is important on so many levels, but also as a flex towards recent... I don't even think this was specifically his purpose. It just achieves this. I don't want to put words in his mouth. But, you know, we had that kind of RFK meltdown about how anyone with autism is a blubbering, non-functioning person in society. Or
they're building a registry, Mike.
Anyway,
that's good.
This episode, this season of The Rehearsal, it indirectly, directly, I don't know, is such a flex on that I can't even begin to explain it. I can't do it justice, so I will not attempt. Just watch it. That's what I'll say. I've
had like multiple people within the last 24 hours text me and tell me exactly that. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. I was in the middle of a sentence explaining how you could get your comment read. You can do so on our Patreon, patreon.com/K&M. Join up, and then I will read your comment here on the YouTubes.
As it's been made clear, not only is Keith unable to read your entire comment, I simply won't allow it. I will cut in at any moment and destroy it. So that's the other reason.
You interrupt and destroy things as part of your job on the show. I'm
a professional pain in the ass.
Did you see my lights just go goofy?
Yeah.
No idea why.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's the prophets telling us to, let's go, boys.
Mm-hmm.
So Joshua Cronin says, this is so hard for me to watch when I did because I had this stupid internal thing that Ezri got rid of Jadzia and held that against her for at least 3 rewatches. Now being my 16th rewatch.
Wow.
I appreciate the character so much and like her mannerisms that you will discover, Mike. I really liked the friendship between Kira and Kraytak, and I was sad at what happened between those two. Me too, actually. I was kind of hoping for that to go in a different direction.
Me too.
Good coming back episode from the blow we got dealt in season 6. 84 self-sealing stem bolts from me. Brian from Video Game Drive-By says, and I was genuinely thinking about this off air, says, hey guys, I'm mostly okay. I have a mystery lung issue no one can figure out, because we were saying that Brian was watching the watch-along from the ER. And there's no one I'd rather kill a few hours waiting in the ER than with you guys. I could have used this episode yesterday, as I was stuck here again for 7 hours. Yeah, dude, I wish I had a way to solve that. I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm hoping the mystery gets solved and all will be well.
I'm not even saying this flip. It's going to sound that way though, unfortunately. There is an episode of The Golden Girls. The Golden Girls thematically went a lot of different directions, Keith, as you will soon discover. But then, like out of nowhere, in a really funny season, there's an episode about Dorothy feeling tired all the time and feeling unwell, and how doctors who cannot right away discover what's wrong with you and write you a prescription for a pill often just chalk it up to mental illness, or that you're nuts, or that it's, they don't take it seriously, right. And you're often the feeling of the mystery is more upsetting than the symptoms of the issue. And I hope that both of those things subside for you.
Yeah, I hope you're being taken seriously. Anyway, sending our best wishes. We are genuinely thinking of you. Keep us in, if you care to, keep us, let us know you're okay when you get okay. How about that? So Image in the Sand, Brian continues, is an interesting one for me. The entire episode hangs like an open wound. No one is okay. Worf totally sells his form of Klingon grief, and his moment with O'Brien was so wholesome. And everyone joining in on the quest to help Worf, and of course Jadzia, warms my heart. As a non-believer, grief hit me so much harder than it ever did as a believer. I am so happy for them having a way to honor Jadzia beyond she is just gone. And then there's Kira being in charge. She's earning that respect from the Romulans and Sisko. I will withhold discussing that plot point until we have further information. Thank you, sir. In closing, I used to have a massive crush on the actress playing New Dax, thanks to her turn in a spectacular sci-fi horror film, Cube. This film is part of my big 3 sci-fi films everyone should see: Cube, Event Horizon, and Dark City. Okay, so that's interesting. I did not know that she was in Cube. I also have a massive crush on her. I'll just be honest, I do. So I've seen Cube, but it was so long ago, I don't even remember her being in that movie. I'm definitely gonna have to see that again.
So this is an interesting one, and because of this comment, I will revisit. I remember having a viscerally bad reaction when I saw Event Horizon circa whenever it came out. I saw it in the theater and I despised it, and I cannot remember why.
Did you really?
I remember just hating it. I think it was not what I wanted. I think I was expecting like very much a, what's that movie with he's on The Martian, a much more like space, like jaunty space adventure,
like a space survival.
Yeah, and
no,
it is not that, as I recall. It's like a horror film, correct?
It is I think it's genuinely one of the most scary films.
Yes, and I think I was
like
not
years.
Prepared for that, so I think that's why. But I'm going to revisit, because if it's on your pantheon of top 3, I got to go back.
Well, I mean, and I have not seen Dark City. So
I don't know that I've ever heard of it, so
too.
I think maybe we'll do a trio. I'm gonna have to do a trio watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna rewatch Cube, for Nicole DeBurn, and I'm going to watch Dark City. But I love Event Horizon.
I do not recall it.
It's scary. It is
like a psychological horror movie. It's like Scary Interstellar.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, it's a really terrifying concept. It's done really well. It's horrifying. I mean, don't get me. It is a very upsetting film, but I think it's great. I think it's really good. So check out Event Horizon. Anyway, Brian continues. Without the rest of the beginning part of this season, this episode is a solid 80 stem bolts, but it'll definitely borrow some stem bolts from later episodes. Also, Mike, and many people reference this, Armin Shimmerman played Andrew Ryan in BioShock.
Yes.
And Rene Auberjonois was Mr. House in Fallout New Vegas.
Yes, both these things in retrospect is really cool. I didn't really watch this show, so it didn't mean anything to me. The games preceded my knowledge of these performers. So.
Well, here you are. Now when you replay, you'll have a whole different experience.
I haven't gone back to BioShock in quite a while.
I've never played it.
It's cool. It does. It invents some of the better video game twists.
Yeah, I mean, I like
the gameplay
Fallout.
holds up. Gameplay holds up.
I liked Fallout 4. I couldn't play Fallout 5 because I don't want there to be other people in my space. I don't want real people in my space.
That's not Fallout 5. That's not Fallout 5.
Or Fallout 76 or whatever it is. I can't do that.
Starfield?
That's why I don't.
Have you played
I
Starfield?
don't play the online versions of Red Dead or GTA 5, which I love the games.
I think you'd like Starfield, man. Starfield's cool.
I just need a more. I don't like things where like reality is a little bit iffy. I need to sort of know what the I'm autistic. I need to know the rules of like the universe and then live within that. There's another game that I was playing.
I think you will like it.
Sounds slow.
It is slow.
Yeah. So
anything Bethesda's pretty slow.
I'm not really big on slow, says the guy who has spent most of the week collecting all of the cards on Red Dead. So
you're still playing that game? That's crazy. Okay.
It's so great. I'm on my third playthrough.
It's probably the slowest of all games.
It's the best game ever made. And this is my third playthrough. I'm gonna
is this 2
do 100%. Yeah, Red Dead 2.
Have you ever played 1?
I've played 1 2 or 3 times.
Cool.
Great. But I'm gonna get 100% completion this time. That is my plan. Anyway, Jason Moe says, please talk about Star Trek.
No, wait, Jason's a big gamer. He's into it.
No, that's fair enough. He says, my hottest of takes, I actually prefer new Dax over old Dax. For various reasons I'll get into more as the season goes on. So I'm always happy when she shows up here with that cute Tinkerbell pixie cut to inject a bit of extra whimsy into season 7 and shake things up a little with the main cast. I also appreciate that this episode begins to lean more into the emissary-ness of it all, a sure sign that this season isn't going to be afraid to get a little bit weird. 94 stem bolts. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be talking about Ezri a lot this season. And I think, I can't pick favorites. All of my children are special, and I don't think this version of Dax would mean what it would mean without the previous version of Dax.
Yep, right, yeah.
What Ezri does, adding a different seasoning to the show, adding the lightness that all of our characters have sort of ground down a little bit because of being through war for 6 seasons. But also, what makes Ezri super interesting is the way that she contrasts with Jadzia. And I think that makes her a really interesting new flavor. But you can't have one without the other. Both would be a little bit neutered. Anyway, Casey Alexander, new patron, welcome, Casey, says, I stumbled on the channel the week you released. I knew that was coming. I was
late, yeah.
I was stalling for that loud and annoying audio, but here we are. Casey says, I stumbled on the channel the week you released Far Beyond the Stars. I have binged every episode in these few months, and now I'm caught up. Don't hit it again. There you go.
A record
Taking
scratch.
away your soundboard. That is astounding. That's 151 episodes of us. That's 300 hours of our bullshit. Darn stuff. I just tried to censor myself. It didn't work.
Well, after you said the word.
Nailed it. Wow. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. Casey continues, yes. I have simply loved your content.
Thank you.
I don't always agree with your takes, and I love that. To be perfectly honest, I don't always agree with my own takes because I don't remember them. And I take a hot take I don't necessarily remember, so I might be conflicting with myself.
Yeah, that's the best part of the discourse, I think. And we talked about this on YouTube too. I said, Keith and I have said it from the beginning, and I stand by this, and it's one of my favorite things. We don't have to agree with each other. In fact, we shouldn't all the time. As long as we're kind in our discourse, it's cool.
Fair enough. Casey says, I studied music in college and have gone into other industries. I have always wondered if a coalition of people who are musicians and people who love Star Trek. Yeah, I absolutely think there's a correlation there. Because...
Correlation or coalition?
Well, both.
Yeah.
I think there's a correlation between music and science, first off. And science and Star Trek, Star Trek is the combination of science and art, right? Because it is art based in a science-based world, and music is math, music is science, but it is a mixture of science of tone and keys, big voice leading and music theory is the science and architecture and math behind it, and then you use math to make art. And I think that's the same thing that Star Trek does. And so I think, you use science to make art, and you use math to make music. Of course there's a correlation. Of course there's a combination of people there. Casey continued, I joined the Patreon and hope to catch up with my first live this week. Thanks for the background noise so that I can do my job, clean the house, or take the dog on a run. Keep it up. Honored and humbled to be your background noise. What are you doing right now, Casey? That's what I want to know. Right this minute. What are you doing?
Oh man, the cat is sitting so dangerously close to every button, just threatening to destroy the show.
That's what Tux does. That's part of the whimsy. Also, where are the Golden Girls' plans? I am very much for that. It's coming. It's in Mike's little noggin.
Yeah, the plan right now is we're gonna get through season 3 of Strange New Worlds first to Star Trek, and then at the conclusion of that, we will wrap in. I do have pretty concrete plans about Golden Girls. I'll just have to talk to Keith about it.
All right, good to know. Kevin Miles says this episode could be called the third pilot for Deep Space Nine. The first being The Emissary, the second being Way of the Warrior, and now this episode. Each one of those changed the trajectory of the series in its own way without ruining the series. It added to the story. As in real life, people come and go in the military, jobs, and relationships. This does not mean it's a bad thing, just different. DS9 emphasizes these changes and makes it work. Has anyone else noticed that Sisko suffers almost as much as O'Brien? Good point. I give this episode 90. Self-sealing stem bolts. Yeah, third pilot. I think you're right. I believe this is the end of Act 1. I think is what we've really reached here.
Well, Sisko's finally a full Jedi in this episode. So
he's finally a full Jedi. He has met his calling. He is in the basic archetype of fantasy, it is the stable boy has discovered he's the son of the king. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like it's such an archetype, but it works. It works. Hibernation Pod says, I hated that Aerosmith. Apparently you did want to miss a thing?
Did I say on the show I also despise that song? I must have said that.
I don't remember.
It's one of when it comes on, I can't change it fast enough.
And don't want to close my eyes.
I want to close my ears, all right? So shut up.
Well, you guys can miss it all you want. I don't want to miss a thing.
I'll open my eyes to that.
I liked some of their tunes back in the day, but lost interest in listening to them well over 20 years ago. A great episode and kept me interested. I like Ezri. I don't blame Joseph Sisko for his initial reaction about the Sarah. I keep things guarded too. Something similar happened to my sister. She's older than me, but I heard pieces of the truth here and there growing up, and the lies were buried under more lies, and it was all so stupid and confusing. Yes, families. Solid start to season 7, 85 self-sealing stem bolts, and he brought a clip
that I will play right now.
Yeah. Hey guys. So I mean, like, for the most part, I don't hear you guys with your voices having an accent or anything of that kind, but I'm kind of wondering if you hear an accent in my voice. I hear Americans do Canadian accents, and they usually do them really bad. I actually don't even know what it is that they're hearing, but just kind of curious.
Well,
yeah.
Having lived in Canada for a little while, I can tell you that now that you've mentioned it, I can hear a slight Canadian accent in you. And it's interesting because the Northeast Regional that we were referencing last week and the Canadian accent are actually diametrically opposite. Whereas you're more of an a closed O versus an O, right? Which is a much more kind of like spread one. Or an A versus an A. So we're much more kind of like nasally and spread back, whereas Canadians are kind of more phonated in front. O, A, ah.
Yeah, I do hear. Well, I mean, what is an accent? Because like an accent to me is just means different from how I speak. I have an accent, whatever. But yeah, I do. I hear it in the word no. Mm-hmm. You're Canadian, no. And what's interesting, living where I live, because Philadelphia sounds weird to me, even though I also grew up in the Northeast, but I grew up in New England, which is sort of weird, like halfway. So if I did your comment here in a Vermont accent, here's it. I don't blame Joseph Sisko for his initial reaction. I keep things guarded too. Something similar happened to my sister. She's older than me. You know, it's sort of, in Vermont, it's sort of tucked up right here, you know.
Yeah, it's tucked up. It's more like Nantucket and those kind of like upper Northeast, Maine, kind of fishing village type things.
So if you take Vermont, you tuck it out for Vermont, you're going to go out farming. and you just lower it a little bit, and then your main like, oh, lobster and chowder, you know.
And then you spread that west, and you almost Wisconsin.
Right, and it's fascinating.
Anyway. Dialogues are very fascinating, and also in this, I will,
I can't do a Philly. It's
hard.
And Boston is this whole other thing.
It's funny. I'm much better at regional accents than I am at like your standard British and those kind of accents, or like putting really deep Southern accent. And the reason is, I think because I'm intimidated by them. I'm very interested in the study of accents, but I hesitate to do them very often because they're so hyper specific. I feel like you tend, especially
it feels
on stage,
dangerous
to go broad with it, and then so you're either gonna. I have a friend Carrie who is a dialect coach, and she coaches all these people, and she's like, I've just tried to get like 1 or 2 notches past super broad, and then you've done something. I will say, musical theater school or theater training in general, for as much as worth of a piece of paper as that degree is, one of the things it did do was really neutralize my accent, which I do appreciate, because that was a lifelong change versus
interesting.
A lot of the other things skills I haven't really used. I don't do a lot of pirouettes in my life, but I do appreciate the neutral accent.
I like doing accents, but I would never. I'm comfortable doing comedic versions of the accents. If I ever tried to do like an accurate one, I think like you're just in such danger of being eggy. But for me, obviously, I don't believe that I have an accent of any sort, and I never did. I think I probably told the story in one of the shows. Who knows? But like in Vermont, when I was a kid, people didn't know where I was from. Like my own classmates, I substitute taught the year after I graduated high school at a school like next door, and the kids wanted to know, like, are you British? Where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from like Poker Hill Road, like 2 miles that way. But because I was a pretentious child raised on NPR, my accent is NPR. And so like, and I'm, I was always hyperverbal or whatever, but like, I never picked up, I never started with the local Vermont accent, because what I listened to were my parents, also pretentious NPR people, and NPR itself. So I never picked it up. All right. Mysterious Anne says, crab fries are so good. I'm amazed about the cultural specificity of Philly. Like the fact that Mike, my husband, and Paul F. Tompkins have so many of the same references and touchstones. I don't have nearly as strong a sense of location-specific identity connected to the Chicago suburb I grew up in as Mysterious Sean does to Drexel Hill. We do have fun with accents. See, more accent top. When I say Mary, Mary, or Mary, they all sound exactly the same. Same goes for Aaron and Aaron. They're homophones, and you have to rely on context to communicate the word you mean. I think that is also true of me. For my husband and his family, you can tell they're different words by how you say them. Mike, say Mary, Mary, Mary. So Mary, like Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Like engage.
Merry Christmas. Mary Smith. And what's the other one?
Marry as in to get married.
Married. So they are different.
Interesting.
Yeah. Married, Mary,
Marry.
Married, Mary, Mary. Yeah, they are different. Substantially.
That's so weird.
Specifically different.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I knew Sean was from Pennsylvania, but I did not know Drexel Hill. So my mom grew up not far from Drexel Hill, and my dad was from Kensington. But my first play I ever did, Pippin, was in Drexel Hill. It was at a theater in Drexel Hill that is no longer there.
Interesting. Yeah, no, those are all homophones for me, 100%.
Merry Christmas. Mary Smith, let's get married.
Married. That's weird. It's like ERAR or AHR for married for you. Like I'm gonna get married to somebody.
Married.
Weird. Mike noticed that they seem to make a pretty deliberate choice in casting a different type for Dax. Nana Visitor explores that, both related to Dax and even more of her own experiences in her book, Women in Star Trek. I should read that book. It's kind of a harrowing glimpse into casting in the 90s. She writes about how she'd show up for auditions, and it would be a room full of people who all look like her. And she'd always run into the same people at every audition because everything was based on how you were categorized by body type and look. Still is.
Nothing's changed.
Like you'd get labeled sexy and only be up for parts that were called a sexy woman, or you would be labeled cute or beautiful and be categorized or limited that way. Nana would dye her hair and wear different clothes to try to make herself fit into other categories and open up more possible roles for herself. Chase Masterton brought this up on the Delta Flyers recently. She talked about how she was very deliberate in making Lita look and sound different from Kira, because she didn't think the show would bring her back as a recurring character if she was just another woman with brown hair. Yeah, 100%.
Happy to report they've now started to change casting breakdowns. So it doesn't just say sexy woman. It's a little more, it's about 3 paragraphs. But here's the thing. They still call them the same people. Yeah.
they just use a different code. It's all coded language, but yes.
However, that brings up a question I had that really plays into this theme. You know, Kira has had she's taken on a lot of responsibility the past few episodes. And by a lot, I mean a lot.
Yeah.
And yet, she's still wearing the same red tight. Like, my question is, is it because she's Bajoran that she's chosen to wear this out? Like, can we in canon make that make sense?
You mean in canon?
Or is it just she looks good in that tight suit, so we just keep her in it?
I mean, you would think that a colonel, the leader of, a former resistance fighter, one of the most practical, tough, smart people out there, and in responsibility for the Deep Space Nine, the wormhole, Bajor, half of the war, would have at least pockets.
Yeah.
You'd think. But 90s, unfortunately. All right.
So she never gets to wear that awesome uniform, Keith's professed favorite uniform.
I'm not going to spoil anything. I can't tell you what she's going to wear or not wear in the future.
All right, well, we got 24 episodes, so let's rock.
Yeah, well, it's coming. YouTube viewer says, I wish this episode had more Weyoun and Damar.
This
is a great table-setting episode. It sets up pieces on the board reasonably well. The episode wasn't particularly exciting. No major flaws. I liked Kira's hair. Since the cult of the... All right, so this is where I think YouTube has something very interesting to say. Since the cult of the Pawraiths is basically the Bajoran equivalent to Satanists, Kira and the Bajorans as a whole seemed unusually tolerant of them. I guess Star Trek assumes that all good guy factions automatically allow freedom of religion, but this goes beyond freedom of religion. This goes beyond the spiritual realms and into the material world. I would argue that the Pawraith's possession is morally equivalent to a person's violating the bodily autonomy of another. Agreed. The Pawraiths have also attempted mass murder. Agreed. They have stolen a starship and sabotaged critical equipment. A reasonable person would be concerned that people who support the Pawraiths would also be capable of bad things, and therefore be a real threat to security. Not only do Pawraiths do evil things, but they attack Deep Space Nine specifically. Speaking of... Okay, so... Interesting. Such an interesting point you make here. And I think you're arguing that because people worship these gods who do bad things, that they are therefore suspicious or should be held, be held responsible or some fashion. And to which I would say, first off, if you believe in freedom of religion, no. If you believe in freedom of thought, no. And beyond that, okay, I'm assuming, based on context clues, you might believe in a Judeo-Christian faith. Look, crack open your Bible. The God that you profess to have done far more horrible stuff than the Pawraiths have ever done on the show, but particularly in the Old Testament. Old Testament God makes the Pawraiths look like a Care Bear. So if I held them responsible, if they were suspicious because they worship a God that did stuff like this, that would make every organized religion that way. In the same way that me believing in whatever means I'm responsible for every person who acts in that organization. So if I have brown hair, doesn't mean I'm responsible, even though I believe in. Anyway, so my point is, like, it's a little thought policey to think that way, and like, okay, so it's the same thing with Satanists, right? There's no evidence at all that people who profess to be Satanist or believe in witchcraft or whatever are any more violent or any more dangerous than anybody else.
Yeah, I guess.
I think I would think there's a lot more dangerous people operating on what we consider normal religions doing horrible things than there are people who are the less common ones.
Yes, I think the interesting conversation is in the between the conversation you and YouTube are having here, because I think you are pointing out the nuance about how, like, every religion kind of has its evil and bad-ish that has happened, and I think he's trying to point into the more extremist realm, and I'll make that easy, right? Let's use jihadists, right? Well, that is a religious-based fight that is rooted in murder, right? In, like, destroying all the infidels and whatever. So what if we have some of those folks, and we do, who are here?
No question.
So
no question. Or in another way, like sort of a white supremacist group.
So
right?
it's difficult. It's difficult to be both a champion of freedom of speech and freedom of religion and keep the government out of my business, and also, I want to feel safe when I go to the park. So make sure, I'm agreeing with freedom of speech, make sure they're on a list somewhere, right? Just like after 9/11, people were like, why didn't we know these people were like? It's tough. Right. It's nuanced.
It is tough, and I think where we're at with the Paul Wraith folks is that at this point they believe, like, I may really dislike what they believe, but until they take an action, what they believe is not my business. Well, until they take an action that harms or inhibits somebody else's beliefs, it's not my business.
Let me put a point on it with an interesting observation. I wouldn't have even thought about this. I wouldn't have even gone along on this thought exercise had YouTube not brought this up, because due to, my guess, budgetary concerns, they had 6 extras playing this group of folks, thus carrying no sense of threat, no sense of actual being able to do anything. Now, had this been a scene outside and there were 600, 800 Pa Wraith supporters, probably there would have been some implied threat or malice, and that would have made me think about it more. So I'm glad he brought it up, because I hadn't even thought about it, because Kira and everybody do, it's very flip. It's sort of in the opening and we barely discuss it, and it's this sort of treatment of it is very non-threatening.
Yeah. No, and look, there's a muddy line, right? Between somebody's beliefs.
As long as it stays muddy and does not become bloody.
Fair enough. So, like, we need to see some action from them before I think it's fair to put them on a list. You know what I mean?
Well, it's even worse now. Actually, I don't want to get into that. Forget it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a whole different
there
podcast.
YouTube continues. Speaking of which, it is a minor plot hole that Ben Sisko has been studying the Bajoran language and doesn't know that the guy praying in front of him said "pa" every third word. I even noticed that. Someone wearing robes and chanting Latin at me, and I heard Satan, 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 I would at least back out of stabbing range. Very good point. And somebody did comment this, and you got it. But just for the sake of things, in Bajoran, "pa" means soul. Not the wraith in the Pa Wraith is the scary word, not the pa part. So I think that's why. But you know that. I'm not saying that Ben shouldn't have been stabbed, but they should have at least had a brief scuffle before Jake intervened because no way Ben would have realistically let his guard down like that. 100% yes. It's the same thing with Jedzia, right? Like our heroes are are going down a little faster than they ought to.
Yeah. When you're shucking clams off-world, the guard is down.
Your guard is down, but a weird guy comes up to you in an alley wearing a robe.
You know what? When you're shucking, you're not giving a. Let's go on.
I really wish you'd clammed up on that one. You're a shell of your former self. Compared to the other part ones in the multi-part Deep Space Nine, this is probably the weakest one. The fact that this episode couldn't carry water on its own makes this subpar. 50 out of 100 half-finished STEM bolts. Sort of. I think it's just a quieter episode. It's also part 2 of a... Because I consider the season finale of 6 part 1. This is part 2, and then
I don't care what y'all considered. Let me tell you, they're all separate episodes. They don't say and now the conclusion of. If I don't hear major, they do.
Yeah, she said. So she says, and now the continuation, and then the conclusion. So
I retract.
Although I think this one they said continuation, because I don't think Deep Space Nine is. We're not going to get to a period pretty much till the end of this thing. So, all right. So JD says, I need to remember after we finish Deep Space Nine to send Mike a documentary someone did 4 years ago explaining the Berman problem. It's probably the best way to explain it all in like 45 minutes. Actually, send that to me. I'd like to watch that. Mike, that ChatGPT explanation you got sounds like what TV Guide told us that summer before we got to season 7, so that works. But there are still some people who hated Nicole from the first beat, and it was dumb, because she is wonderful, as you will see, but it's really about how some people just can't deal with change. Yeah, like, guess what? When your favorite actor leaves, under any circumstances, good, bad, ugly, horrible, the actor replacing them is just an actor doing a job. She did not stab Terry in the neck. She came in for a job.
It's interesting too. I was thinking about this. That's very true. Just the same way as, in our world, Keith, people leave shows for all kinds of reasons.
For sure.
You're lucky if you leave because your contract's up. So there's all kinds of drama constantly. And a lot of people these days, they know the soundtrack of a musical and they go see it and are shocked to learn those are not the people performing in the show. And it's much, or oh my God, the understudy's going on. I paid all this money for tickets. I can't believe it. I'm pissed. It's just not the fault of the product. The story is still being told. So
there were some people who came to our tour of Titanic the musical who were annoyed that Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't in it.
Yeah, well, me too. That would have been entertaining. So I don't know the point I'm trying to make, but let's not take it out on this poor actress who is very talented and whom I already adore.
Yeah. What sucked was season 7 was also senior year of high school for me, so I ended up missing a lot of episodes because I was so busy. And I tried to remember to set up the VCR to record it, as we talked about, and we knew I'd be out, but I still missed a lot until they did the reruns the following summer. Yeah, it's tough. Texans tend to say towel, a single syllable for towel as well. Y'all grab your towels. I'm so sorry, Texas. And to add to what Keith said about art adding purpose to death, it's also about adding purpose to life. And in that it exposes death's purpose as being the last period after the last word on the last page in the final chapter of the Book of Life. Yeah. If I recall, Toys used to be on Friday, and DS9 was on Monday. And now you have Toys on Mondays and DS9 on Fridays, so was it a 4-year plan to reverse the schedules? JD, I think by now, you should know. There is no plan. There will never be a plan. Oh,
here's how it goes. On some days, I text Keith and I say, nooner? Meaning, should we record on noon? And he'll say, how about tomorrow? Or he'll say, that means, let's check in tomorrow. Or he'll say, totes, which means we're going at noon.
That,
you've seen it. That's the entirety of our process.
That is 100% the plan.
Then we sit down, and one of us says, "Do you have an opening?" And we go, let's think about it. And then we record one, and it's bad. And then we do another one, and there we go.
Yeah. So here's today's. You'll never be able to see it. Anyway, Nooner? ? Totes. That is it. That is the entire.
That's the T-shirt, Keith. K&M, and on the back it just says Nooner ? Totes.
Totes. Yes, that is the only. I don't think we spoke more than 2 sentences before we were live on air.
On occasion, Keith will decide he needs to take a shower. He'll say, "No, I'm going to shower first."
Yeah, frequently happens. All right. Anyway, JD continues. So for Kanar, they would use corn syrup with green food color, and the actors got to where they would start pouring less and less in the cup because it would make them sick to be consuming straight corn syrup. Yeah, you see it a little bit this
little
episode.
At the bottom.
It is so thick. You'd think they'd thin it out a little bit, but like he held it like this for like 5 seconds and none of it went in because it was like. As we say in Vermont, that's got molasses in January. Wouldn't go up there, too slow.
I didn't know Vermont people were just straight out of a sea shanty.
Well, you know, the old timers are, for sure. You know, Jillian used to make it was like, that's not an accent. That's ridiculous. Nobody talks like that. And then she finally met someone. She's like, they're real. It's crazy. Anyway. Mike, I was one who, during the rewatch, that on the watch along, mentioned that the not replicating cups thing for Worf, I conjured a plug for that hole. So it's Klingon blood wine, and when it comes to real blood wine, you don't drink it out of any old glass you have sitting around. You have to drink blood wine from the proper blood mug, manufactured by the LaCroix House, forged from the stereoactive of cards. So of course he has to drink it in the ceremonial thing. It can't be replicated, which means he actually has to wash it, and Worf's not washing right now.
Yeah.
This episode, great. I love it. This episode is the best example of what I call resetting the table. Like, we cleared lunch, and now we are setting for dinner. There's nothing complicated about it, but it's perfect for what it is. Yeah, it's the end of Act 1. 90 self-sealing stem bolts from me, and I'm JD! And lastly, I just loved that this conversation happened on our YouTube page. Maynard Stuff said, was thinking about saving this video for Monday, but gonna watch it now. And John B 2422 says, it gets me through work, gotta save for Tuesday. I don't know why. I don't know if it scratched my narcissism, but I'm like, I love the fact that this is like a thing that helps people get through boring times.
Yes, I agree with you. It's my favorite thing because I have there's 2 main podcasts that I don't know these guys. I just feel like we're pals. And so I save them for certain times of the week when I know I'm going to be alone and I have a lot of time to kill. Like, it's not just, I don't want to do pip and pop. So I'm going to be on a drive. I have a 45-minute drive, perfect time to chill. Or I'm going for a walk. It's going to be an hour and a half. Perfect. I don't like to do it on a run because I want to enjoy.
You don't want to suffer through it.
So that we can be that for some folks is awesome. Thank you. And listen, we don't take it for granted.
We do not. All right. We have taken an hour of your life for granted, but it is now time to talk about Season 7, Episode 2, Shadows and Symbols. This was October 7th, 1998. I love October. Favorite month. No questions, my favorite month of the year. Got the Halloween movies, you've got candy, it's the fall, the best season by far. Football's cooking, hockey's starting. It is the best month of the year, no question. The top song, and Mike's already got the reverb on, ready to roll, was The First Night, Monica.
Forget it.
Mike's sadness was
I thought
reverb.
it would for sure be a song I knew. How's the first night go? Do you know that song?
No.
Was I not listening to music in 1998? Oh, I wasn't. I was playing music.
Yeah. You were in ska-based 40. or whatever it was.
Real Big Fish was big in 1997.
You need to add one of your hooks from Space Ace 8 Mafia Space X
as a thing.
As a bumper, yeah.
All right, I'll work on
we need more of Mike's ska band, my high school ska band on the show. I've always felt
I'll
that.
see if I can pull some clips together.
The top movie, Ants.
The Woody, the was it not Woody? What's his bucket? Problematic.
Oh, super probably. Yeah, Woody Allen.
Yes, it was.
Oof.
It was an
you
animated
know
Woody Allen film for children.
You know what's great for a kids movie? Woody Allen.
So here's what's funny about that. I'm about to say it on the internet.
Mm.
So it was released within a year of A Bug's Life, which was a big Disney movie. Ants is the superior film.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really good. But I happen to particularly care for the Woody Allen
You just
thing.
really love Woody Allen.
I like his storytelling, unfortunately, and his whole thing is sort of kind of me. So, with the exception,
you want.
Honey,
cut.
First of all, I just said honey. Again, I called you honey.
Yep.
And my favorite Philadelphia Inquirer review is being called Philly's chubby Woody Allen.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Which, that'll hopefully, you can't pay enough money to get that off Google.
Oh boy, yeah, you don't want any piece of that. But all right, so listen. All right, so now we're here. So just listen to the cast for Ants.
Great.
Ready for this? The aforementioned monster, Woody Allen, Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman, Sylvester Stallone, Dan Aykroyd, Anne Bancroft, Jane Curtin, Danny Glover, Jennifer Lopez, John Mahoney, Christopher Walken, Jim Cummings, the guy who does Winnie the Pooh, and all of that. All in the same movie.
It's a good movie.
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't watch animated. Anyway, Mike, what was on TV?
I'm so glad you asked, Keith.
Hopefully focused on problematic film directors.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get there.
What did Roman Polanski do this week?
So first, let me say that, just like you, Keith, ABC was really excited that football was back.
Yes, of course.
And so, obviously Monday Night Football was big.
Who was playing?
The Minnesota Vikings were playing the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
But they had a full hour back then. Instead of just calling it like Monday Night Football pregame or whatever they do now, they were trying so many new titles. So from 8 until 9, you had NFL Monday Blast. From 9
NFL Monday Blast.
From 9 until the start of the game, they had NFL Monday Showcase. And then finally, NFL Monday Night Football. That was the... When in reality, it was just football.
They were working so hard to have 3 entries on the Nielsen ratings.
Keith, speaking of monsters, coming back on ABC at CBS was yet another season of Cosby.
Oh boy, what a wonderful time.
Followed by the series premiere of The King of Queens.
Oh, okay.
And that ran for a long, long time.
Do you know that Kevin James went to high school with Mick Foley?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they were both on the wrestling team.
And I think this was when Leah Remini was just about to become a Scientologist before becoming fervently against Scientology. We also had, Keith, are you ready for it? It's time for a ton of shows I'd never heard of that Keith will now tell us the plot of.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, okay.
The first being the CBS 9:30 slot was the premiere of a show called The Brian Benben Show.
Oh, The Brian Benben Show, of course. So he was the first...
Wait, hold on. You have to tell me you have to tell me what it's about, and then you also have to tell me how many episodes aired.
Okay, so interestingly, Kevin James led both of these series, and so The Brian Benben Show was the first white cook at a Benihana, and he went in and he was Brian Benben, and he was working there. It ran only 7 episodes because King of Queens took off.
Okay, how many episodes did it air?
It aired 4.
Okay, The show centered on Brian Benben, an anchor on KYLA TV News in Los Angeles, who was replaced in favor of a younger person, but was able later to return to the station as a replacement for a human interest reporter who was killed covering an ape exhibit at the zoo.
Basically, Jay Leno's story?
Keith, are you ready for this? It was dropped after 4 of the 9 episodes aired. Well done, buddy. Okay,
God,
Keith.
Amazing.
Next,
God.
at 8:30 on NBC was a show. The pilot was airing tonight called Conrad Bloom. What was Conrad Bloom about, and how many episodes aired?
Conrad Bloom was a small town pilot, like a Cessna pilot, whose job it was to deliver flowers into a valley in Utah. So every week he had to deliver flowers into the valley because that's the only way he could get to. He was Conrad Bloom, and it starred let me see who did it. It was Rob Lowe, right before he did The West Wing.
So this was a show that centered around Conrad Bloom, a copywriter in New York City, looking for love while pursuing his career. He has to deal with the women in his life, a mother, a sister, an ex-girlfriend still harboring feelings for him, a boss, and a coworker. Balances work, life, friends, and family. It starred Mark Faustine, Lauren Graham, Jessica Stone, Paula Newsome, Linda Levine, and
Linda Lavin?
Linda Lavin, and Ever Carradine. Okay, Keith, I'd like to say those were the only 3, but the UPN was launching 3 new shows.
Oh God.
Guys Like Us was the first at 8 p.m.
Okay, it was UPN. It was clearly aliens. It was basically 3 aliens in meat suits came and worked in a dairy farm, pretending to be human.
Okay, yeah. It was created around Bachelor Sean Baker, who was played by somebody Hartnick. Chris Hartwick, yes. And Jared Harris, who was played by Bumper Robinson.
Bumper.
They come to live with his father, a freelance position overseas. Now the 2 bachelors must give up some of their perks, so it's basically perfect strangers. How many episodes? It lasted 4 episodes.
Okay, well, I think we should bumper ourselves forward.
No.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
There was also a show called DeResta. DeResta was a transit cop, and it was so bad that it aired, it looks like 6 episodes. And then finally there was an episode called The Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer. Keith, I really want you to tell me what The Secret Life of Desmond Pfeiffer was.
Wait, Secret Diary?
The Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer.
Oh, okay. Well, this was clearly, Desmond Pfeiffer was an 11-year-old boy in an all-boys school in England. But he really wanted to write sci-fi. And so he wrote about sci-fi. It was not allowed because this boarding school did not believe in science.
Keith, a black English nobleman named Desmond Pfeiffer, chased out of the UK due to gambling debts, becomes President Abraham Lincoln's valet. In the show, he serves as an intelligent and erudite backbone of Civil War-era White House populated by louts and drunkards.
I remember this.
It was so, before the series premiere, several African-American groups, including the NAACP, protested against the premise of the series. 5 days later, UPN released a statement regarding the controversy and stated that the network planned on delaying the controversial pilot episode, which never even aired, and would instead air an alternate episode in its place, so just a random episode, and then they just canceled the show. I
remember that. It was Chi McBride who was about to go and do a Boston Public.
Yeah, crazy.
David Kelly series.
But
when I typed in Secret Diary of, I got Secret Diary of a Call Girl and Sinner, the Secret Diary of a Nymphomaniac. Which, of course, the Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, aged 13 and a quarter, would have paid a lot of attention to.
Anyway, nice swing, UPN. Try again.
Woof. Okay. Well, nice swing us. What was Voyager doing? interestingly, still in the off-season. Still offset by this much. All right, Shadows and Symbols was directed by Alan Croker, who last directed Tears of the Prophets. And it was written, continued to be, by Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Beimler. Which, if you think what we've been doing so far has been trivial, just wait. Now Keith, waste your time.
With what?
With trivial trivia. Now I kind of want to watch that Secret Diary of Desmond something.
I'll see if it's on YouTube, yeah.
It's gotta be. All right, so trivial trivia, and I will have to keep an eye out for this in the screenshots. There's a scene with Odo and Kira where Kira appears in 2 different close-up shots without her Bajoran nose ridges.
Wait, hold on. That Secret Life thing? No, now I am understanding why it was offensive. It's a comedy.
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah, so it was
It's a
basically
half-hour sitcom.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was some sort of okay. Yeah, all right. It was Mr. Belvedere, but slavery.
Oh yeah. No, what a hilarious thing.
You right there, buddy?
Yeah, I was just seeing who's making a delivery and what. It was Amazon. It looked like a cop, and I was like, uh-oh.
Keith gets arrested on air. That'd be it. Now that's a hot take.
Woof! It'd be our last episode, but it'd be interesting. Yeah, so keep an eye out for Nana without her Bajoran nose ridges, which was clearly a mistake, an odd one to make, but, these things happen.
When was that?
During one of her scenes with Odo.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to keep an eye out. So Nicole DeBurr, Dax, and director Alan Croker knew each other very well from the TV series Beyond Reality, where they shot 10 episodes together. Neither was aware, however, that the other was working on Deep Space Nine until they met on set the first day of filming this episode.
That's cool.
And I had never heard of Beyond Reality. But it was a show that happened. It was like a parapsychologists looking at ghosts and it looks like an X-Files ripoff. Yeah, you have to look into that. That's interesting. I don't love to see what Nicole was doing before. Oh, I see her. Interesting. All right, anyway. One of the vessels shown in the Bajoran blockade is a reuse of the Karama starship from Starship Down. The story of the weapons too close to home, with a response of a blockade to prevent their completion and their eventual removal, of course, is an allusion to the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Very interesting. Is it Cuban Missile Crisis? I remember being taught that in school, but not really understanding how important it was, and I doubt most people even remember. But that was a real dicey moment in our history. So the writing on the walls in Sisko's vision was done by the show's entire art department and consists of actual episode summaries of every episode of the series prior to this one. So Sisko's vision character, Benny Russell, is really writing what he says he is. The history of Deep Space Nine. That's crazy. I mean, the amount of work it took to write all of that by hand. This is also why you can tell these handwriting is different in every episode.
You have questions about that, but we'll get to it.
Okay. Interesting. The Sarah Prophet confirms in this episode that the Pa-Wraith released by Dukat was, in Tears of the Prophet, is Coast Imogen from the showdown with Jake and Kira.
Which is what we said we wanted it to be.
Which is what we said we wanted it to be.
We just got that info way late.
I feel like that was we
should tie these together.
Note. We should tie these together. But how did it go from being kicked off of Deep Space Nine to into the ancient doll, being trapped in the ancient doll? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, if you track the whole plot line, it's a little crazy. I mean, I guess it makes more sense. No, because the normal prophets are non-corporeal, right? So they went back in time to go into Sarah and do all this. So maybe the Pa-Wraiths can do the same thing. Maybe, or maybe that they trapped the Coast Imogen and then went back in time and put them in a doll, I guess. Well, times all happen on top of each other. And I mean, it's just like...
Yeah, time's not linear. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Our guest stars this week are Jeffrey Combs as Wayoon, Casey Biggs as Damar, and Dr. Wycoff. Awesome.
So handsome.
Very handsome. Very handsome. He was married to one of our Voyager cast members.
A certain mysterious Anne in her youth was hoping he was married to her.
Oh, well, I mean, he's a very foxy guy and a singer. He's a musician. So, understandable. Barry Jenner is here as Admiral Ross. J.G. Hertzler is here as Martok. Deborah Lacey is here as Sarah Sisko. Megan Cole as Kretok. And, of course, special guest star Brock Peters as Joseph Sisko. I've probably used this one before, but you want to know who's the special guest star in our show and in our hearts?
Keith, that's the second page of the Patron Hall of Famers.
For sure, yeah.
You know, they're not second in our heart, though, so I want to make sure...
No, they're first in our heart. They're frequently first.
That I showed it. And you know, even better than the second page is the first page.
Is it better or just different?
Well, better... The first is better when you second it first, you know what I mean? And that's really what I think is what we're saying here.
The first is better when you second it first.
Yeah.
Mike and Deglio, May 1990.
I stand by it. And then, of course, the patrons. So many. Some newbies that I will highlight. They're here somewhere.
Casey Alexander is new this week.
Yes, thank you, Casey. So many folks joining the show. So many people binge watching and listening to us for so long. It's not just insane, and I don't mean insane on your part, although you could make that argument. It's insane that people are listening to us at all and find anything of interest. And maybe if nothing more, they are finding that coalition of like-minded individuals, mostly. I've talked a lot of words here. I'm going to skip reading the names because we've talked for hours. But once again, let me say, we appreciate you. You can join this team, patreon.com/K&M. Make sure you spell out the and.
Yeah, spell out that and. Very, very important. Very important part of this. Yeah, for sure. All right, Mike. Shall we go into the screening room? Oh boy.
Keith!
All right.
You all right? God. You seem like half yourself.
Oh, I'm shy. I'm shy.
All right, hold on. Move on to the other side, and I want you to push it.
Okay, all right.
Push the green line.
Okay, let me get this way. Hold on. There we go. Get out of the way.
There we go.
Okay, good.
That was oddly satisfying.
I can't believe that worked. That was amazing. You know what? This is, if you ever wanted to know the magic Mike can do on the fly.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Right there, you saw it. It's pretty remarkable, frankly. All right, so in our teaser, we now get a chance to talk to the new Ezri Dax. And she has had a very different journey to being joined than Jadzia. She did not plan to be joined. She was just the only Trill on the ship trying to save Dax. And she did not get any training or prep work for being joined. So naturally, she is confused and overwhelmed by 8 new people living inside her head. Which is, I think, a great new storytelling opportunity here.
And I think performed really well, right? That there's a sort of a mania that comes along with it that may be Ezri's personality or speech pattern pre the symbiote, but I like to think that having all these new voices and feelings and stuff is creating this sort of buzz in her.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, because we explored I worked really hard for this, I fought for this, I prepared for this, I was ready for this when this happened, and now we explore the opposite side of that, and what a, you know, I obviously hated to lose Terry, But I do think this is a great new and interesting avenue to mine out of the character of Dax, and it is one of the great things about the character of Dax is that it is evergreen. It's, it's Doctor Who.
We talked a little. Yes, that's a great pull. We talked about this a little bit before, so I won't belabor it. But we had that episode where Dax was sort of revisiting a bunch of her other previous people, or we got to interview them. I forget what the mechanism was, but
yeah, there was a ceremony.
But
gave them all a chance to walk around.
Knowing and understanding and being told how the symbiotes work and being told the history of the previous Daxes and Ben and such is one thing. But now getting to experience it firsthand, right? Seeing to weave in the Jadzia stuff and even the Curzon, feels like we know Curzon as well, into this new character that we are also first being introduced to with previous knowledge is cool. You don't get to do that kind of thing much.
Well, and we have a new perspective on all of Dax's people, but Dax has a new perspective on all of our characters. And her point of view is quite literally different as she notices that Jake got a lot taller because Terry was like a runway model and is like 5'11".
This is unique in a way too, though. If I'm not mistaken, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Doctor Who guy. I haven't watched a ton of it, especially the old series. I've seen some of the new ones. If my understanding is, though he regenerates, Doctor Who regenerates, they don't do a lot of like the old Doctor Who's live in the head, and it because it's a continuation more than an addition. It's sort of just a straight through line rather than referencing it. So it's not one-to-one.
Because it's not a. Actually, I don't know Doctor Who, but my understanding is that it's not a new person; it's a new body.
Yes, correct. It's a regeneration, I think. It's what it's called.
Whereas this is like a new person adding to it. But I'd love the details of like all of a sudden Jake is super tall, like because of course, and so she has this completely new perspective on all of the people.
And it's also cool, and a show that is not afraid to touch on spirituality. It's an interesting sort of subtle reflection on the idea of reincarnation.
Right.
Which, you have, and I'm so excited, and we get a taste here. You have someone who's in the deep in the mourning process. Deep. Right? Go fight a war deep. And then completes said mission, and then goes home, trying to then maybe find some closure, and then is introduced to that person.
Right. Well, God, I mean, for Worf, what a mind F. But and it's also like there's like a little bit of like theory of relativity happening here, and like crazy. So Ezri says about her experience, they gave me some books to read, some counseling, but once the host and the symbiont are joined, there's really not much they can do. My parents, my friends, my crewmates, it's like they don't know me anymore, which is understandable because I hardly know myself.
Why the single pip?
She's an ensign.
I know. You know who else has a single pip, Keith?
Oh. So what you're saying is that there is not an inappropriate power dynamic between the two of you.
2 pips in a pod, they say.
This is going to be a season about Mike hitting on...
If 2 pips meet on a ship, and one's kind of hit, maybe they could sip some cornstarch out of Canar glass. And then give my pants an unzip.
Oh, thank you for really just finishing that off, which is kind of what you were hoping for. Anyway.
Should I take that out of the episode? Is that?
Absolutely not. In fact, I believe you should take that entire runner, add a beat to it, and make it a club song. AI. This is the good use of AI. Take that quote out. Say, turn this into a club song. There it is.
All right. That may or may not appear at the end of the episode.
Ezri tries to continue before we creepily just gawk at her the entire time. Says, that's why I took a leave of absence and came here. If anyone can help me through this, it's you. And she's going to start by going on an adventure to find the Orb of the Prophets. Always start with an adventure. So in Act 1, we go to the bridge of Martok's ship, and Worf prays for the insane mission they're about to go on, and they are all about to do the blood oath. And he speaks in Klingon, but here is the translation.
Keith, hold
of
on.
what.
I want to make sure, we often hear from the mysterious Anne, but we did have some commentary by the mysterious Walter this week.
Oh,
I want to make sure to get into the episode
yeah, please.
using kid vernacular. In this scene where Jake is telling Dax it's great to see her and all that. He also said that Jake is dripping with Riz. Dripping with Riz.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because they're in an interesting dynamic now too. Because Jake's a young adult, and all of a sudden Dax got a lot closer to his age.
Yeah. In fact, and then I kind of extrapolated over the next hour that all three of the Sisko men who get to share this episode it's like different generations of Riz.
Right. Yeah. Well, even Deep Space Nine, you're all dripping with Riz.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
Like good Riz, evil Riz, whatever it is. I don't understand.
Continue the rhyme, Keith. Good Riz, bad Riz, evil Riz, whatever it is.
Nope, not gonna walk into that one. No, sir.
Oh boy.
You are gonna have to sit in that all by yourself, sir. We are not in the biz. All right, so what Worf says in his Klingon prayer, he says, "We dedicate this mission and our lives to the memory of the great warrior Jadzia Dax. Through our victory, she will enter the sacred halls of Sto-vo-kor." But before the blood starts getting spilled, Quark comes in and says he's going along.
Did I miss all of these shots?
That's weird. Huh. Or maybe I missed something?
Did you miss the scene with Admiral Ross and Kira?
I think I just might not have mentioned it because all they did was restate what we already knew.
Yeah, and Admiral Ross is pretty worthless for the majority of this episode.
He's not really taking a big stand on anything. So Quark comes in and he's going to go along, and he pledges his life to Jadzia and Sto-vo-kor. Martok is impressed, and Quark is rewarded by a blade across the hand, showing a fair amount of blood for broadcast TV. On the runabout, Sisko and Ezri are on their way, and we find out that Ezri gets space sick, and she apparently puked on the control panel, which is a hilarious little detail.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, was she always space sick, or is she space sick because her head is so crowded?
So, Keith, would you allow me a quick anecdote?
I mean, do we do that?
Because it's... You know how sometimes a TV show or something can spring a neuron that just brings you down a hole? So I'm watching this episode, and I'm taken aback by... Because Sirik... I keep calling him by his actor name. Jake was sort of getting his Riz on, with Dax.
Yeah.
And then his take when she's like, I puked a little on the console, and he's like, a little? He's so horrified by it, and I was like, yo, man, that's a bad look. You gotta play it cool.
Play it cool, buddy.
But it reminded me so much, and it happened synchronicity. It happened my senior year. It was during my senior prom, so it was right around now, or my junior. It was right around here time. A couple of friends and our dates went to Six Flags Great Adventure, and my friend, I won't say his name, was dating this new girl.
Which, by the way, I got a season pass again. We have to go.
Yes, we do have to go. I was talking about it this morning. His date was from a different school. We never met her, and I was not. My date was not my girlfriend, so I was single at the time. And anyway, his date was very cute, and I was very much
the girlfriend who lived in Canada turned out to be legit.
Very much attracted to said girl, and we went to the Six Flags, and I'm like crushing on this girl who was my friend's date. And she throws up on the roller coaster. And whatever, happens to the best of us. And she's like, I'm not feeling well. So he's like, well, let's let her sleep in the car. So we go back to the parking lot, sleep in the car. And I think we're just going to drive home because one of our friends is sick. And he's like, no, just leave her there. Like, give her the keys, let her air condition. Let's go finish our day at the park. And I was like, we're all feeling awkward about that. But that's what we did. We go back. And then
Chivalry, not dead.
We're back on this ride. And my buddy's like, I'm going to have to break up with her now. I can never unsee that. And I remember thinking, what a D-bag.
Well, that's the double D at that point. He's already proven himself a D-bag twice.
Anyway, filed that away. Whatever, that was an experience that happened. Didn't think that that memory could possibly have survived the years of abuse I've put to my brain. Deep Space Nine brought it.
I mean, I think everybody has a puke and love story. I had a crush, like basically from first grade all the way into high school, and she was this girl who lived down the road, and I just like was marvelous. I was desperately in love with this girl this entire time, and we went to preschool together. So like I knew her before this. So on my first day going to first grade, this the first time ever on a bus, first time ever going to my regular public school, and I sat next to her on the bus going to first grade, and did not get halfway to the school before I barfed all over the front of the seat and our feet below. We were so little, our feet did not touch the ground at that point, but like barf everywhere. I did not make it through my first day in first grade. And who did I puke on? But the girl I would spend most of my time madly in love. It didn't work out, and she finds this all madly hilarious. So I told the story. I was at a benefit in Vermont, and she went and she brought her mother. This was 10 years ago, and she brought her mother. She was pregnant with her like fourth kid or whatever, and it was like I booked like 3 or 4 hours and just like realized, oh crap, I have to fill, and I was sick, so I could barely sing. So I like did a stand-up routine about realizing I was straight because I saw her bra strap, and I was like, this is the time to tell the story in a crowded room directly in front of her and her mother. Anyway, I did. Luckily, she found it hilarious.
Puke and love, folks. There you have it.
There it is, puke and love. Anyway, where the hell are we? Okay, so Dax explains that she keeps re-experiencing the last 2 seconds of Torias Dax's life when they're flying, who died in a shuttlecraft accident. She then orders Raktajino and forgets that she hates it, but Curzon and Jadzia liked it. And so, talk about intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, imagine bringing the trauma of past lifetimes into your current one. That sucks.
Well, that's like, you have the happiness, but I feel like the trauma would get really heavy at some point, especially for all the traumatic deaths, for all the losses. Like, I would probably want some training to take on. I have enough of my own. Thank you very much.
Is it diluted in a way, right? Because otherwise, wouldn't the love for Worf, which must be so recent, is there recency bias? What's the levels here?
I don't know. We're gonna have to navigate it together. So back on Deep Space Nine, Ross and Kira debate what to do about the Romulan weapons on the moon. The diplomats are fighting, but nothing is happening.
Keith, did you copy paste and put in a different order?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah.
Are the screenshots out of order? Maybe.
I think this. Maybe they are.
No, we'll see.
Because
we'll
now we're back. Because you're ahead of me now. You're like well ahead of me. Anyway.
Okay.
So it's possible. Entirely possible I did this out of order. So Ross and Kira debate what to do about the Romulan weapons on the moon. Diplomats are fighting, but nothing is happening. Kira's not having it, but the Bajorans can't do it themselves, and the Federation can't help. And Kira says we're just not as important to the war effort as the Romulans. And Ross says that's a harsh way to put it. The truth often is. That is some wisdom right there. But Kira has a plan. Put up a blockade before the final piece of the weapon arrives. Back on the runabout, they're ready to beam down onto the planet, and they're going to have to do so in person because of technobabble, and Sisko reminds them it's a dry planet. But then he, and only he, hears a hospital announcement paging a Dr. Wycoff. That's interesting. He's hallucinating. They arrive on the planet. It's rocky and dry, and they're wearing Starfleet desert robes. Now Ben has clearly, you can see it right there, has clearly spilled lunch.
He's been eating in costume. This is why we don't do this.
You don't eat in costume, or he's sweat through his supportive garments. Either way, it's an odd mistake that gets fixed in the next scene.
Fun anecdote.
All right, here we go.
For everybody, it's just like a behind the scenes error. There are so many things when you become an actor professionally, and there are so many things you can be taught in school, and then so many things you just learn by doing, and
tons, yeah.
And there's things like you don't say good luck, you don't whistle in empty. There's like little folklore things that some people take seriously, some people don't.
You don't say the Scottish play's name.
Things like that, or the ghost light. You learn about what a ghost light is, and then you start doing some film stuff, and you realize there's a whole different universe over there, and so many things don't Venn diagram both worlds. But there's this prevailing thing that every actor learns early on if you want to be of any success, and it's you take care of the production staff, right? The behind the scenes folks, the techs, the lighting people, the craft services, the food folk, whoever it is.
Yes.
You realize you're the privileged one as an actor who don't have to do any of that stuff. You take care of them. And the number one way to respect everybody in general is to not eat in costume. Everybody says it, everybody does it. And when you break that rule, you pay the price, or you always get scolded. And so we collectively scold Avery Brooks.
Avery.
For eating costume. They just didn't. They tried to stick that out. They couldn't do it. And they're like, forget it, just shoot it.
I don't think they noticed.
But yeah, I think he didn't tell anybody. Is what I think.
I think he did.
I think he had that robe closed up.
I don't think we caught this until the dailies, and they're like, God damn it!
Well, maybe he was just sweaty. You know what I mean? We'll chalk it up to sweat.
Could have been, but he sweat immediately after the beam down, and then never again through this whole journey. Anyway, so Sisko chooses a direction purely on instinct, and they head off. And doing this on location was great.
Cool, yeah.
Added so much to the episode. So in Act 2 on Martok's ship, they cloak and everyone explains the plan to Quark and the audience. So they are going to fly super close to the closest star and trigger a plasma ejection solar flare that will wipe out the shipyards. It's naturally very risky. But Worf, it will be a glorious firestorm that will illuminate. He is a pirate, apparently. It will be a glorious firestorm
that will
illuminate the gates of Stovacor itself and provide a fitting welcome for Jadzia. Pirate. Worf is
Man. Worf is from Vermont. Keith's impression of Vermont is now Worf. Work.
It was a pirate, not Vermont.
Yeah. Okay.
So Quark is annoyed that Worf isn't grateful for them showing up. And Worf says, why should I show any gratitude toward you? I owe you nothing. You're not here to help Jadzia get into Stovacor. You are here because you wish to convince yourselves that you are worthy of her. But the truth is, none of you could ever hope to be worthy of Jadzia Dax or even understand the kind of woman she was. It's you who should be thanking me, Ferengi, for allowing you to come on this mission to pay honor to her memory. Now here's a production thing. So Worf's gonna be in a dick. We'll get to it. But the production thing that bothers me in this episode is, where is Worf's baldric? I don't think I've ever seen him without it. Even I know I'm wrong. There's gonna be a million examples, but even in his Klingon uniform, he almost always has his baldric. Am I right?
I can't help you there, Bo.
So, on the desert planet, Ben is marching around through the heat at a frantic pace, and Ezri tries to get him to take it. See, they fixed it. Mm-hmm. Ezri tries him to get it to take a rest and give his aging father a break. But you can, however, see they're very sensible sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
That they put a little flaps over the top, but those are some good old Nikes. On Cardassia, Weyoun interrupts Damar's drinking with a lady Cardassian.
And I like that her backpack is just a straight laptop backpack.
I mean, you got to have a laptop.
Yeah,
I mean, backpack technology has not changed a great deal. I don't know how you do a space backpack. It's just good, low tech. It works. So we see Damar, hitting on a lady Cardassian and drinking.
Got that
Riz. And Weyoun says, Damar, you and I have things to discuss, things your guest doesn't want to hear. And why is that? because if she does, I'll be forced to have her executed. Now that's Riz. So Damar is clearly leaning into the excesses of fake command, and they reinforce here how important the Dominion shipyards are. That is the purpose of the scene. So on Deep Space Nine, Kira tells Odo of her plan to set up a blockade at the moon. They're completely outgunned, and this is going to be a showdown. But she's trusting that the Romulans won't fire. Naturally, Kira will be in the lead ship, and Odo will be at her side. So she has the nose ridge there. We have to look for the scene where she doesn't have it. It's subtle, but it's there.
It's not okay.
Yeah, you see it. The little ridges there.
Was this production thing you noticed, or was it in?
No, it was. Okay. Well, it was on IMDb, so it's just somebody else like me noticed it. So who knows? So back on Tyree, Ben and party have been trekking for a long time and are now exhausted. Joseph is starting to flag, and Jake is helping him along, but they keep moving. Ben falls to his knees and grabs his trusty baseball and a shovel, but leaves his pack behind, as well as Joseph and Jake. Ben is starting to act more frantically, and he's still hallucinating the sound of a Dr. Wycoff being called in a hospital. He's not listening to Dax, who's trying to pull him together, and in frustration, she grabs his baseball and throws it to try to get his attention. I think that could have been played better, but it was. But Sisko knows that wherever that baseball landed is where he should dig. So we're dealing with some spiritual destiny stuff here.
The Force, baby.
And Ezri, the Force, 100%. And Ezri finishes the scene. Ben, maybe my memories are playing tricks, but have you gotten stranger? Great out for an act. So Kira has set the blockade in front of the Bajoran moon. It's just a ragtag group of sub-warp Bajoran ships. But so far, no Romulans have tried to cross. Oh yeah, maybe it's this scene.
It seems there.
No, she's got it there. So on the bridge, Odo gives Kira a hard-boiled detective novel, and they get a message from Ross and Kretak on Deep Space Nine. There's a Romulan warbird coming in 8 hours, and they are going to break through the blockade. So the clock is now ticking. And Kretak says, Colonel, do you seriously believe that your antiquated collection of impulse ships stand a chance against our warbirds? We'll have to find out soon enough, won't we? Kretak thinks Kira is bluffing. We have a little brinksmanship happening here. So back on Tyree, Jake, Joseph, and Ezri collapse in the shade and watch Ben dig. He's still hearing the Dr. Wycoff message, and he's acting crazy. So what is I think is interesting about this episode, and I'm noticing it especially as I'm reading this, is these three stories, we start 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. Then it's 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Then it's one, and it continues to pick up the pace until by the end we're sort of frantically through all of these things. And I think it's a really great way to ratchet up the speed of the narrative while you're telling these three interconnecting stories. And it's just directed really well and paced really well.
Keith, I will also say that this is where one JD asked me in the chat, just, hey Mike, what do you have a theory as to what the sounds are? And I hadn't really thought much about it because I was just going for the ride, but I put my head to it and I said, I don't know, maybe it's calling out from a different dimension. Maybe it's Benny Russell. Did he call it?
Oh,
he frickin' called it.
Wow. Well played, sir.
I mean, I just kind of guessed randomly, but because the only kind of it definitely wasn't remember how sometimes you go to that other alternate dimension? It definitely wasn't that.
But it wasn't the mirror universe.
Yeah, so that was the only other touchstone. It didn't make any sense. I couldn't figure out why or how. I think the way they did it was kind of cool. So.
I love that they called back this way.
Yeah, and I think we get a little piece of lore, which does throw the whole debate about who's on what side, what's real or not. It does kind of answer that question a little bit.
Sort of, yeah. But yeah, I think it's great. Anyway, so on we'll get into it. Mm-hmm. So on Martok's ship, they're still arguing about Worf not being grateful. And Martok, as always, is the voice of reason. And he says, and these men were her friends. They honor her with their presence. Martok is very woke. Is a Klingon warrior.
Yeah, somebody
Always
said,
thinking about feelings.
and I think you would agree with this, Keith. Someone said in the scene later in the show, the thing about Martok that they love is that he makes everybody seen.
Yes. He is very empathic. He is very wise.
I think Worf, who has very little agency, Quark, who has very little agency in this episode, even he gets like a handshake at the end to be like, I see you. Martok makes sure everybody's seen.
Yeah, I like Martok is the most like progressively emotionally mature person in the series, practically, which is fascinating. So Worf knows Martok is right and apologizes to them and tells them how important they each were to Jadzia. And Quark says, you were jealous because she liked us better than you. Would you please be quiet, Quark? Worf says, Jadzia was my wife, my Parmakai, and I did not like having to share her affections. And O'Brien says, that's why you didn't want to come on the mission. You wanted to help her into Sto-vo-kor without our help. It was my gift to her. Come on, there's nothing more to say except I'm pleased that you're here. And I think that is there's something interesting here about grief, right? You lose a spouse in particular, because parents, you usually have siblings or other parents or whatever. You lose a spouse. You have a singular relationship with your spouse. And it's hard to, in your grief, I would imagine, wrap your head around the idea that your spouse was also important to other people and has these other relationships with these other people. And like, to realize like, this is just shattered my life. This can't possibly, nobody else's experience here can possibly be as important or as giant as mine. And it's not as important, but it's interesting here that they address this very specific thing.
Yes, because I've often thought, and this is really, really, really cool, no, not cool, interesting concept, in that, so what's one of the people's first response to someone else in grief? They think they can offer comfort by letting them know they're not on an island, which is true, right, which is great. And I think, you're not the only one feeling this. I lost my dad too, or I did. And oftentimes I think in early stage grief, that actually, where you think you're pulling them out of isolation, I think
right,
that can add to it, because they're not at the stage where they need to be seen, right? Not necessarily empathized with, because by you also, like in Worf's experience, by them also having important relationships with the Jadzia, it's diluting the water of his grief.
Right, you feel like you are validating that person's feelings, but really you're invalidating them.
Right. I think later, when you get to the stages where you're really feeling isolated and alone and such, that's when that can be helpful, right?
Right.
But it's just, I think what Deep Space Nine does so great is it brings up things that don't have black or white answers, really complicated concepts like grief, like spirituality, like war, right? That are nuanced, and our conversations and ideas don't have solutions, right? So once again, just another great conversation.
Yeah, and I think this is a wise and more layered and more interesting way to explore grief than we would normally see. And I really, really like it. So they arrive at the shipyards. It's giant. Dozens of ships are being built simultaneously. Uh-oh. Then on Tyree, apparently Ben sucks at digging because he's made almost no progress during the previous scene, but he does discover the orb of the emissary. But before he opens it, he is Benny Russell from Far Beyond the Stars, and he's been institutionalized and is writing the Deep Space Nine story on the walls with a pencil. I remember the first time I saw this, I'm like, oh my god, we just hopped into, and I remember this, and I knew it was coming this episode. I couldn't believe how late in the episode we got here. Ah, yes. Yeah. I mean, how freaking cool, right?
Awesome.
Like, love this callback. And I love how it's handled and like why it's there and exactly the purpose it has. It's just so much more interesting than you would expect.
And it does track, because if you look at the last time we saw Benny, makes sense. He was having that breakdown in the office and whatnot. You could very well see a spiral from that point.
Well, if you are telling the story and using it for evil, right? Because who's telling the story? It was the prophets before trying to help Sisko. This is now the Paw Wraiths trying to tell the story for their own purposes. And so it's an evil version of it. It's like taking...
And it's not just telling the story. That's the thing I had to keep bringing myself. It's like he's experiencing it. It's like VR. So like,
yes,
when he's talked to the prophets before, you're sort of like insta-beamed somewhere. And those experiences are very real, and the information from them he's learned to sort of interpret in a way. So here, it's a good ruse by the Paw Wraith.
It's more of a hallucination than you're just in a different situation. You don't have the agency you would have to be transported somewhere else in your right mind.
Yeah.
You are like actively hallucinating something, so you are not in your right mind.
But that does, like that, I guess that one part that is a little bit of a, oh no.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah. Maybe, sort of, is like the fiction of this world where he's institutionalized doesn't quite make sense, because he still is, his brain does still exist in both lands, right? Like he knows what his mission is on Tyree, and here they're trying to get, he's like, cover it with the paint, cover it, and he's struggling, but he's not really, his verb is still to dig, to open the orb. What is physically stopping him?
Oh, no, I don't think he is aware.
You think it's
I
just
do not
like...
think, I don't think Benny Russell, like when he's Benny here, he's Benny. He's not aware of what Sisko is doing digging.
But what he's doing here is still playing agency into Tyree?
Okay, so what he's trying to, what the Power Wraith is trying to do is trying to stop him from opening the orb. To stop him from continuing the story. And so in this Benny Russell vision they're giving him, continuing the story as opposed to opening the orb is continuing to write. And both Sisko and Benny want to continue, but have the Paw Wraiths trying to stop them.
Okay.
So he's existing as Benny, unaware.
But the Paw Wraith has the ability to just possess you. Why doesn't he just possess him? I guess because he's so far away. Paw Wraith is in the wormhole.
Paw Wraith is in the wormhole, and I don't think he'd be able to possess the emissaries. Too powerful, but also like possession would be temporary, and so like all they can do is sort of try to manipulate. He's trying to manipulate, but you can't manipulate.
Yeah, so maybe, because I just have to make it make sense for myself. Maybe if he's trying to confuse Ben Sisko, right, or try to prevent him mentally, Ben Sisko's very strong. But whereas in this scenario, if he can do it into Ben's sort of like other part of his consciousness, which is Benny Russell, he's in a much more vulnerable position here in the psych ward.
Yeah, he's trying to confuse him. Like you can. Yes, exactly. It's like he's gaslighting. I'm trying to convince you that you're crazy, so you don't do the thing you know you need to do.
Okay,
which is different from like don't do it.
I would say, for me at least, it's a cooler idea than it is executed well for me. Like, not executed. It just doesn't completely track in my brain. But
I would say watch it again.
Okay.
Because I think it does, like, it's jarring, especially to like keep track of like the whys and the wherefores. But like to me, on God knows what viewing this was, it did feel right to me.
But then why not just hit him with it rather than like it's trailing off and it's getting closer and it's getting, you know? I hear the voice a couple times, and now all of a sudden I'm there. Like, why did it take so long? Or maybe it's because he's so far away. They have to.
Well, we don't know how it works.
Yeah.
We know that he has the ability to do this, but like, you know, if he hit it right away, it might be harder because he's slowly being driven mad by. So
the pursuit.
Sisko has 3 things in his head.
Right, you have the
Sisko,
prophet leading him.
The prophet leading him. You have his own brain, and you have the power rate. So in a lot of ways, he's sort of a vessel at this point because the prophets are leading him to the orb. The pirates are trying to, pirates are trying to stop him, and Sisko himself has not a great deal of agency by the end of this.
Okay, I'm feeling.
So
better about
I don't know. It's interesting. So Dr. Wycoff, played by Casey Biggs, is trying to get him to stop writing. Benny asks to be sent home, but Wycoff tells him he can't go home until he stops writing, which is where the point of leverage in canon of that is. And Wycoff says, "To you, the world you've created, Deep Space Nine, Captain Sisko, Kira, and all the others, none of it is real. It is real, it is to me. If I don't finish my story, if Sisko doesn't open the orb, he can't contact the prophets. On the planet, Sisko has frozen, and Jake tries to wake him up, but he gets zapped away by the lightning." Interesting which of the prophet, the good guys or the bad guys, zaps Jake away here, because I think you could make an argument for either one. Meanwhile, the showdown has arrived at the blockade. Kira tells the Romulans if they get within transporter range, they will be fired on. Ross and Kretak try to negotiate, but Kira says no dice.
Wait, hold on.
Is this the... kind of see the ridge? It's hard to tell.
Can't tell.
Can't tell.
Because that's the ridge.
That's the ridge, yeah. That's the ridge.
She got it. She
just got it. So Ross and Kretak try to negotiate, but Kira says no dice. And Ross says, "Damn it, Colonel, if you open fire on these ships, we all lose. The only way to beat the Dominion is to keep our alliance intact. Besides, I would hate to see you throw your life away. Your concern is touching, Senator, but I'm not dead yet." And closes it, and Odo says, "At least not for the next 6 minutes." So on Martok's ship, they've gotten crazy close to the star, but they need to get closer and zap it with technobabble. Then back to the institution, Dr. Wycoff tries to get Benny to paint over his words on the wall, and Benny thinks about it. On the planet, Ben starts burying the orb. Things are really picking up now. So in Act 5, the blockade showdown has intensified. They're about to open fire. And Odo says, "Nerys, if you're going to end this, I suggest you do it now." Then Martok's ship decloaks and skims across the surface of the star. They fire their beams, but nothing happens. O'Brien is going to recalibrate, but now they're being chased by Jem'Hadar ships. Boom! Tyree. Ezri stops Ben from breaking the orb, and he drops his shovel. Benny drops the paint roller. So here, we have the prophets, we have Pal-Race, and this is where Ben reclaims his agency. And he keeps writing, Benny keeps writing, and Ben opens the orb, which causes a blue light to shoot out of it into the sky. Sisko finds himself in Prophet Land. The beam shoots into space and reopens the wormhole.
Hold on, I was promised I would do this.
Wormhole! They found it! Hooray! Kira, meanwhile, is waiting for the battle to start, but then they find out that the wormhole is open again. And we watch as the Pal-Wraith is ejected from the wormhole and destroyed. It poops out the Pal-Wraith. This, of course, is a sign to Kira. We're gonna fight. Meanwhile, Martok's ship races even closer to the star, and as they're fired on by the Jem'Hadar ships, they're all sweating from the heat, which is really cool. And just crazy to think. Now, of course, they pulled a move like this on Next Gen. I know. I like it anyway. So they zap the star and pull up a giant wave of magma. The fire destroys the Jem'Hadar ships and then the entire shipyards. They did it! And Worf begins to pray in Klingon. And I just wrote down, so much is happening!
I was shocked that Worf's, this sort of like symbolic closure for Worf and for Dax I got choked up. I found, and for him, his portrayal, I mean, it's my feelings too, but his portrayal, it was so small and internalized, but it struck me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like...
He does two things in this episode that struck me emotionally, like through the television.
Yeah.
This scene is the one, and then his scene in the tag as well.
They do some really good work healing a little bit from the way they killed off Jadzia here.
Yeah.
No question. So back on Bajor, the Romulans blink first. They pull their ships away, and Ross tells Kira she won. They're going to remove the weapons. And Kira says, what changed her mind? I told her that if she didn't remove them, I would.
Which you could have done 45 minutes ago.
Yeah. So she asks, what changed your mind? You did, Colonel. Remind me never to play poker with you. And this, of course, is a callback to the pilot, when Kira did exactly the same thing with Dukat. We should go back and watch the pilot when we're all done.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Because it's so crazy. So in Prophet Land, Sisko finally talks with his mother, the Prophet half. And she says the Sisko has completed his task. Sarah? The Coast Emojan no longer threatens us. All has been restored. You mean the Paw Wraith? It's no longer in the wormhole? I have cast it out. Is that why the Prophet sent me to Tyree? To release you from the orb? The Coast Emojan tried to stop you with a false vision, but you did not waver. You fulfilled your destiny. By destiny, you make it sound like my life's over. The Sisko must still face many tasks. Are you Sarah Sisko? Are you my mother? Sarah Sisko was corporeal. For a time, I shared her existence. You took over her body and made sure she married my father so she'd give birth to me? The Sisko is necessary. And once you didn't need her anymore, you left her? No wonder she walked out of my father. She never chose him. You did. The Sisko would prefer different answers. What you're telling me isn't easy to accept. You arranged my birth. I exist because of you. The Sisko's path is a difficult one. But why me? Why did it have to be me? Because it could be no one else. So, crazy concept. Mm-hmm. So this is sort of like a Zeus story.
Yeah.
Where, like, you know, in that series of gods and demons, like Zeus would possess the bodies of women and father children that way. And so, I think as you pointed out, like, this is not cool.
Yeah, it raises some consent questions, but I have
definitely
more,
raises consent questions.
And if we have any, we sort of get an impression of what it's like to be possessed by a wraith or a prophet in Ben's brief experience as Benny Russell here. What is it like for Sarah? Did she know what was happening for those years and then was released of it, or was she sort of poofed into, oh my goodness, what's happening?
Wakes
I'm
up
married
2 years later, like, I'm married and I have a kid and I didn't even know about it.
Right, and remind me how she died when they found her. It was an accident.
She died it was like a jet ski accident.
Yeah, I mean, I think the darker telling of the story would be that she realized that she had been possessed and like craziness and offed herself, but that's probably a little too dark.
And we've seen possession that takes place over an hour or a day. Mm-hmm. This would be years.
Yeah, and the trauma that inflicted on Joseph too. She just like pieced out, and you don't know why.
Yeah.
You don't, that seems like. So Sarah got the rub.
Big time. And again, it's.
And I'm glad that they let Ben stick up for her a little bit.
Yes, I'm really glad that they addressed that. And again, we're reinforcing that these gods, they're not perfect. They are not operating by our morals. They are not operating by our standards.
And were it not for just kind of the framing of Ben and Kira and like the Bajorans in the show, you still, even with them being good guys to us, or allies at least, let's say, it's hard for me to even say that the prophets are protagonists.
Yes, we know the Pirates are antagonists, and they are just what they are.
Yes.
Which is interesting. Yeah, more to come. So later,
But what this does do, so this is what I think is cool about this episode. It's I just praised the show for how it takes nuanced approaches to nebulous concepts, right? And doesn't necessarily put a line in the sand and say, we're on this side. Up until now, 6 seasons, Ben as the emissary was anointed, yes, by the wormhole aliens. That was confirmed. It was, the Bajorans worship him in a way, and even the Kais have kind of agreed that he is what he is, but the definition of that has sort of been theirs. Now, we know for sure that it was predetermined. He was sired by them for a purpose, which is different.
Well, yes, although the way he says it, like, you facilitated my birth, which leaves open the question, is that your mother? Or like your half-mother? Or were you just possessing and the human Sarah was the full mother? Is it a combination of the two? I don't know. We don't know yet.
True, yeah. I didn't even think about that nuance, yeah.
And just like genetically, what does that mean? Who knows? But it's really fascinating. And
also, why is it purposeful? That's the other thing. My biggest...
How many midichlorians does he have?
Right.
That's what I want to know.
Well, my question is, and perhaps it's answered, but I guess like my bigger question is, even with all of this knowledge, right, is why did you have to then create the emissary when it's clear that you as the prophets or these alien gods, whatever, can possess people? Why not just become the emissary? Because
you want to delegate. Because you'd have to like make one of these people live an entire human life, and like, do they really want to go through all that?
But they're not. They're timeless. So it's like, what does it matter?
Yeah,
to
but
them?
like, you're a god. Do you really want to like poop every day for 50 years? I don't know.
You can't. But then at least talk to him straight. You got to talk in riddles. We're going to create a guy and we're going to just speak to him in riddles. Why not just go do it yourself?
It's not riddles. They're speaking their own language.
Well, Keith. You know what the actual quest for the emissary is. He's supposed to achieve something, clearly. I don't know what it is. You do. It either happens or it doesn't happen. The question becomes, could they have done it to get their GD selves? I guess we'll find out.
These are all good questions, but with all of these, like, it's every religion, right? All of these predestination and your role to play, and like, what's Noah's role? Couldn't God have done it themselves? Why'd they make Noah do it, right? Well, why did they make Job do it?
Why do you have to have 3? If you're God, why do you need 3 parts?
Because that's kind of the point. The point, at least in Judeo-Christian, the point was that God needs us to do it. Right? Whatever the thing is, like, they need to delegate. That's part of what the journey is making us do it.
I will say for the Judeo-Christian God, at least. There's none of this mamby-pamby, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. No, I'm straight pissed. Some drowned y'all.
Well, no, because we went from Old Testament, like, angry drunk father, I'm just gonna murder everyone,
and they're like, that's not
to
fair,
then like the guilty mother, like, oh, anyway, where were we?
Fake
so
gods.
Later,
yeah,
Sisko is back in his Starfleet uniform and he arrives on Deep Space Nine. He is back, baby.
Is that the same kid who was so upset last episode? No, that was a girl, wasn't it?
No, yeah. Everyone celebrates his return, including our heroes and the Bajorans, who are getting their emissary back. And in strides Ezri, who says, Nerys, Julian, Odo, it's so good to see you. Worf, we need to talk. Who's that? That's Dax. And interestingly, we don't address it, but the minute they says it's Dax and Worf pieces out
Exit
hard.
stage right, which was awesome.
Pieces the hell
And
out.
that impacted me. That made me emotional because he was overcome, and it's like, it's so many things, right? It's realizing that, it's in a way seeing the love of your life that got away or dumped you or whatever, like what trauma, and then seeing them with somebody else almost, right? Knowing you can't have her. It's also, I just did all of this and she's not actually dead, but she is dead. Or they all sort of like, there's this feeling of like, oh, she's back, but also no, she's not.
And how the hell do you navigate this if you're Worf? It's just, I mean...
It does bring up, because, Ben's always talking to Curzon, when Curzon part of Dax, and when he needs to have a sit-down boy-to-boy talk or whatever. And we always think, like, oh, that's Curzon. But who would probably disagree? Curzon's family, children, wife. I mean, they're dead, probably long gone.
Well,
but...
and remember all of the rules we've established about how the Trills are not supposed to have relationships with people, romantic or otherwise. And yet, but the Dax symbiote obviously still being best BFFs with Sisko, already sort of breaking that tradition. How are we going to navigate that?
And I'm sure they're going to have to explain why this Dax stays with us when clearly you probably cannot serve on the place where they just served. I'm sure that's a rule.
You're not supposed to, yeah. So, lots to say, and Odo finishes the episode with, just when you thought things couldn't get more interesting. Breaking the fourth wall, kicking us off for season 7. Oh, Jesus.
AlamarEmmys, there was more. AlamarEmmys, it's AlamarEmmys time.
Wow. Okay, so let us talk about our best moment.
A lot of great moments in this episode. But for me, what struck me through the heart with the dagger is those 2 Worf moments that I mentioned. The moment where he's praying on the ship, but then that moment where we all meet Dax, new Dax, Ezri, and it's almost like a sitcom. It's almost a sitcom opening scroll or ending. They're all together and they're looking and they're like, what? And it could be almost considered flip, but for Worf feeling real feels and making that exit, and we all kind of know what's fueling that, and it just made it real. So that's my best moment.
Yeah. No, I think that's really true. We have some like crazy fun action stuff. For me, it's the return of Benny Russell.
Yeah, awesome.
And
that was awesome.
I think just using the power rates, using that as a way to confuse, using psyops as a way to try to stop Sisko and confuse Sisko, just really fun and interesting. Having Casey Biggs there to continue the Benny Russell as an opportunity to show people outside of their makeup, and Damar's the only major character we haven't seen yet, and to use him in that, it's so smart, it's so satisfying, it's really fun.
Well, and it's a bit of a false flag too, because remember there was a debate, we were talking about it earlier. There's a debate, is that real? Is that the alpha story, meta story, or is Deep Space Nine the meta story, and blah blah. And I guess initially I thought, oh hey, this means that the Benny Russell story was not real, and that DS9 is the meta story. But in the power wraiths being able to use Benny Russell in Ben's brain means that really did happen, which means the events from that first episode did exist in some plane of reality, and so the question remains.
Well, right, and also so if Benny Russell is the real story and we're seeing Benny Russell's story acted out, who's to say that Benny didn't go crazy?
Right.
Like who's to say? So yeah, it's the Benny Russell of it all for me. Let's do some stem bolts.
You get some stem bolts. Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some stem bolts for you.
Keith, I complain when the pacing is bad, or when they, like in the season finale, where they just kind of tried to jam too much into too little time. This is an episode I think really paced really well. And like you said, it was methodical in its kind of slow doling of each story in the beginning, and then as we got along, they shortened because we were running out of time, but also they sliced them up and divvied them correctly, and just it all seemed to work. They answered all three of our outlying stories from the past couple episodes, and by answer I mean they satisfied them so that we can continue forward within the new kind of bumper lanes we've created. I would say that the fetch quest for the prophecy or the what was it, the orb of the
orb of the
prophet,
the orb of the emissary.
Yeah, the orb of the emissary, but was when you really break it down, like the verbs of it, not particularly satisfying because Ben didn't really have any agency in it. He sort of got told to go get this thing. They tried to kill him, didn't work. Goes to random desert, uses feelings to get to a place, uses baseball throw to get to spot, digs, finds thing, kills Pa Wraith. It's very video game, right? Fine, you need to find the 3 schmootsies to get to the schmotzi. But we can't get to the schmotzi because there's 3 smaller. Like, it feels a little bit that way.
But what would the alternative be?
No, you're right. I mean, have to, I don't know, solve a riddle?
He did his brain riddle.
Well, I would say that the Benny thing and using the Benny flip, the location shoot, and having Dax, I thought they might use Joseph being, like, Joseph had literally 0 reason to be there.
I think the reason he was there was to show Sisko's the obsession, like how obsessed he was, like his sort of a little bit lack of agency, that he would do this and put his father through this.
100% agree. Just not particularly as interesting as I thought he'd get to interact with the Sarah. That's why he went. We get no conclusion to that arc. I thought that he,
sure.
He operates very much in this episode like Quark does in the B story, where he's there because they wanted him in the plot, but he has no facility to be there, and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't play a part. In fact, none of them really do. Maybe O'Brien, because he does some computer do-do-do-dos, but really they just sort of did the thing.
Well, yes, but I think, to go to the Quark of it all, I think Quark is there to show Quark's courage, to show how devoted he was to Jadzia, that it wasn't that it was real, that it wasn't, just him like. It wasn't him just being horny because she's dead. The horniness doesn't matter, and it wasn't him doing some scheme because there's no scheme here. He was genuinely emotionally invested and put his life at risk to be a part of it. So I think that's the story for Quark. It's not that he did anything; it's that he risked himself for this emotional quest. It's a spiritual quest, not a practical quest. And the fact that Quark would even entertain the idea, I think, tells us something new about Quark.
Okay, I'll buy it. I guess it does feel like, though it was a delicious dessert, it feels a little bit like some empty calories in its execution. Like with this, the quest laid out before us, the solution to said quest happens so quickly, and we sort of end up sort of where we were at the beginning of season 6, which is like, okay, and now that we got through this little trial, Ben is back, we continue. That's all to say. It makes me sound like I'm not liking this episode. Loved it. I actually think it's better than episode 1 of the season because some stuff happens and there are consequences to that. I think we get some closure for Dax. I think that it's not, I don't think we're done with that because I think we have to see Worf's interaction with Ezri.
For sure. Yeah.
Where they have to get to a cool place. But what's cool about that is that at least he can have a conversation with Jadzia Dax.
Yeah.
But not, right? Like,
Right.
How much is lost in the host? That's what we really don't actually know. Because every time we've talked to Curzon or any of these other people, we kind of get the feeling, at least narratively, that, oh, that's them. But it's not wholly. So maybe because we know Jadzia Dax so well, that portion of Ezri Dax talking to Worf, we should be able to clue in a little bit more, use some algebra to decipher.
Right.
We'll see. Hopefully, we get that opportunity. I think Avery Brooks is excellent in this episode. I love when they let him chew a little scenery, and he definitely does. Damar was awesome in this. Everybody's awesome. Just some like lingering things for Mike. I didn't love we all loved Jadzia. We were a little horny for her plotline of the three guys. I wish it had been more of a friendship slant, which it turned into, but it started as a sort of like love quest in the season finale, right?
Of 6, yeah.
Yes. So I'm glad that we sort of retconned that a little bit. Oh man, I had another point. I'm all over the place here. Shoot. Well,
this is what I mean about you run out of words at a certain point.
Oh man, I forget. Yeah, so that listen, all told, I really liked it. The Benny Russell really got me. The Worf of it got me. I'm excited as to where we are. I'm sort of warming to Odo and Kira.
Yeah.
I'm warming to that. I'm loving. I didn't think Kira could get any more badass, but she's at the height of her badassery right now. Yeah, I love where we are. I sort of don't want to touch anything.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to exist in this place of awesome because I have this prevailing feeling that we're not done with trauma. It feels like we've table set back to a status quo that is untenable. Narrative.
Well, our status quo is untenable and filled with trauma.
And that's why I kind of love right now because everybody's here. We're together again. We're going forward against the baddies who are sort of reeling. I'm afraid. I feel very comfortable and afraid. It's all of the astronauts having dinner before they launch tomorrow. So in the pit of our stomach, we know the peril. That's just where I'm sitting.
It's like the dinner scene in Alien.
Keith loves to go back to Alien. You could say we're at the event horizon, if you will. Rocky's about to fight Apollo. What if they throw your favorite movies in? Anyway, I really liked it. What did I give last week?
90.
92 this week. Then I think it's a superior episode. I love the pacing. I like where we're at. I don't know that you can accomplish much more. The special effects let me down a little bit this week.
You think?
Not as hot for me. Could have been the AI. There's like the ship pew pews with the
shipyard blowing up.
Shipyard felt a little bit like
there weren't a lot of they seemed limited in the number of pieces of the shipyard they could blow up.
Yeah, like that whole plot line wasn't. Worf sold the resonance to me. It wasn't as exciting as I think it could have been. The Brinksmanship's plot line was pretty good. I doubt we're gonna. This is like another season where we're sort of gonna jettison a Romulan friend we've made.
Yes, that's right. We make them and we kill them. That's how we roll. Yeah, I mean, I really like this episode. I think that they set up 3 interesting stories. I think they paid each of them off in a satisfying way. I love that we, the Kira Brinksmanship, it's not particularly wildly complex or wildly interesting, but I like being able to hand Kira the station while everybody else is off on chaos, and she can handle the Cuban Missile Crisis. She can handle the big stuff. And so you can, she's like, here's the station, take care of the quadrant while we're running off on our fetch quest. And I'm like, that's cool. I think that is great for the character. And it's the character that we've built thus far. The Cuban Missile Crisis of it all, it's cool. It makes sense. It feels logical to the Romulans. It feels logical to the Bajorans and the Federation sort of being like, it's sort of Russia, Ukraine, us. It's just sort of like, we don't want that. I mean, back when we had a sane foreign policy, we're like, don't do that. We're not going to fight you directly, but we're going to sort of help, but, stay out of it. So like, so I like that. I think finding the orb of the emissary, I think finding out about why Sisko is the emissary and sort of the predestination of the Sisko of it all. We've been setting this up for years and years, and I think it makes sense. I think it's interesting. I think it opens up a lot of, it answers some questions and asks a whole bunch more. I love the Benny Russell part of it. As I mentioned before, I think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting psychologically for Sisko. It is how you would, manipulate Sisko, because this was this thing that really messed with his head, that made him question his reality. So use that as the tool. So all that's great. I think that the new doors we've opened with Ezri are very interesting. I'm looking forward to exploring that part of it. I think Nicole de Burr is really appealing as the character. It set off the dangling shadow, like what's gonna happen with this new Dax and Worf. These are all fascinating questions. We tied up some stuff. I think it is very successful. The pacing I mentioned about the increasing the pacing of the scenes with these 3 stories, so that by the end of it, and I think that is just, it's really well written. It's really well directed. It comes together. I see what you mean about some of the special effects. I would love to have that battle scene redone with contemporary special effects. Yeah, of course. But, same was true of Star Wars. So, I think it was very ambitious, and I think that for the most part they pulled it off, and so I don't really care. So for me, I think it's a very successful conclusion of this little 3-episode story arc. It gets 95 self-sealing stem bolts. And so, so you have now sat through far too long of an episode of us talking about this, of Shadows in Symbols. Next week is not that, but I didn't write down what the next episode was. The next episode is After Image.
Okay.
So that is coming up in the universe. Shadows and Symbols got a 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb. So stick around next week, Shadows and Symbols. If you would like to leave us a comment, please do here on the YouTubes. If you're listening to the podcast version, do us a huge favor, leave a rating and, more importantly, a review on Apple Podcasts. That will really help more people find us in both locations. Thank you so much for putting up with all of this. I gotta go for my walk. It's a beautiful day. We gotta get on to it. We will see you back here next week. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike. Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.
If 2 pips meet on a ship and one's kind of hit, maybe they could sit and then give my pants an unzip.
If 2 pips meet on a ship and one's kinda hit, maybe they could sit, get some canard and sip, and then give my pants an unzip.